Andrew from Connected Digital World here. I got to attend the press conference for Thor: The Dark World. I thought you guys might be interested in seeing some of the highlights of it. Here's the second part. Enjoy.
The film is fantastic. My question is, in terms of the tone, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is kind of matching the comics again, more fantastic, more out there. I wonder if the humour was a way of trying to ground some of that to make it palatable, and in the other sense, as the actors, the cast, as the world is getting more fantastical and things are becoming more strange, what did you find to hook yourself as actors into grounding your performances and trying to stay true to your characters?
Humor is definitely the key. We've got spaceships in this movie and other planets in this movie, and we have found that humor is an amazing way to get the audience to sort of just embrace and accept all of those worlds and all that craziness and all these costumes. It's worked well for us going back to the first Iron Man film.
And in terms of grounding your performances, let's start with Christopher and work our way down.
Grounded, how I ground my
And I'm working hard now.
how I ground my performance out. They'll tell you. They had to suffer. Well, it's interesting talking about the humour of the film. I saw it last week and was really surprised at the amount of humour because I'm such a miserable bastard. I was completely excluded from any of the joy. My character was completely grounded in vengeance. He was like a maniac for revenge. The idea, I think, with Alan and Kevin was to suggest that the Dark Elves were as ancient a race as the Asgardians and had a history, which is why we gave them a language, and had a culture, but most of all they had a grudge, which they had slept on for millions of years. What's interesting about the film is it does have a variety of tones, and myself and Ada Worley, who unfortunately is not here, who played Algrim and Curse, our job was to bring the threat and the menace and the jeopardy, so we ground it in bitterness.
You said earlier that you had to get up at 3 a.m. and put your costume on, and you were so bitter and angry by the time that was over.
My makeup call was about 3 o'clock. I was in the chair about 4 o'clock, 10 o'clock I hit the set, so I was not a happy elf.
And Natalie?
The humor, I think also the fact that the characters are going through, even though they're traveling between realms or going through things that we can all relate to, you know. For myself, playing a woman who the guy didn't call back and disappeared, and there's a long distance thing going on. It works out, she meets the parents, you know, those are all things that obviously most women can relate to, and of course I'm the mortal among the gods and villains near me. So I guess that's naturally more grounded, but a lot of the issues they had us dealing with were human. I mean, even the brothers, I feel like that's so relatable as humans.
Yeah. I remember Hopkins said something to me. We first day on set on Thor 1 and we walked in and our outfits and he has the eye patch and the whole thing and the sets, and he looked at me and said, "There's no acting required here." I always remember that and think like, yeah, don't compete with it, you know, like keep it simple and it already sells a lot of the work for you. So.
I can't add much to what everyone else has already said. I suppose the thing that I always think is grounding about these films is the family relationships for me. We're traveling through space and time, we're dealing with gods and monsters, and at the heart of the film, from my perspective, is a family, a father, 2 sons, 2 brothers, a mother, and the fractious, intimate interaction that they have.
Oh my God. Well, I think Darcy is maybe the most grounded person in the story. Even if she's kind of spacey in her brain, she's not in space. And I mean, I think Darcy's love for Jane and my love for Nat is pretty, easy way for me to stay grounded in the whole thing. And I love you. Yeah, and I get to be the outsider to all the craziness and comment on it. I think like the audience would.
Okay, there's a gentleman here in the front row.
Thank you very much. A question for Kevin. Both Marvel and DC obviously have had successes at the cinema, but Marvel seems to have a very, very good strategy for a universe, not just on the big screen, but obviously TV as well. How coordinated is that, and how far ahead are you looking? I know there's talk about more TV series after S.H.I.E.L.D., more phases in the cinema. How is it one, effectively, for one package you're looking at, and clockwork, as it were?
For the most part, it is. We're a very tight-knit group at the studio, so all the movies are very, very coordinated. And we have them announced through the end of 2015, but are planning as far out as 2017. And sometime next year we'll announce what those films are for 16 and 17. The TV division is up and running now, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. obviously was their first series. I know they'd love to bring more things to the TV screen. I'm not sure exactly what or when that will be. And in terms of S.H.I.E.L.D., yes, they sort of cue off of what's happening in the movies and occasionally check in with us and go, would it be okay if we play with this the last bit? So it is quite coordinated, but it's, again, such a small group, it doesn't feel like an overwhelming task. It's just a heck of a lot of fun.
Thank you.
There's a gentleman in the third row with the grey sweatshirt. Just pass the microphone back.
It's a question to Natalie. I believe your mum keeps a scrapbook of photos that she allows out on set for such eventualities, and all these shots in the flat scene are you through the ages. Do you wish that scrapbook would go away, or as someone who can look at themselves on DVD age 10, are you sort of not worried about your old image?
Yeah, I guess the funny thing is that it is, I think, the same set of photos that she always lends out for every movie I've done for the past 20 years. So there's a lot of characters that shouldn't have the same experiences and family photos, but do. Hopefully they're more in background if people aren't really focusing on them. But yeah, all sorts of different people have been like photoshopped into them. There's some interesting ones of like me and Tobey Maguire when I'm young, but not real, of course. Various different people I've worked with.
Thank you. Fifth row, please, with gentleman with glasses.
Chris did actually touch on this a little bit earlier, but I'm interested because, well, when people say conflict is drama, Malekith is the antagonist here, but we keep talking still about the brothers and the romantic dynamic. What's really the dynamic with Malekith, and what does it mean? What's the point of that storyline, maybe you all think?
This Chris or that Chris?
You, Chris.
Oh. What is the point of my story? That's what I said to my agent. That's what I said to Kevin. The point of my storylines is for me to get paid. The point of my storyline, I'm repeating myself slightly, it's vengeance. He is a maniac for vengeance. There were some scenes which, for understandable reasons, didn't make the final cut, which explain a bit of a backstory between me, my ancestors, and Bor, who is Odin's father. But basically the Dark Elves, before the Big Bang, centuries and centuries ago, were humiliated in defeat and ground into the dirt by Odin. And Malekith has slept on that. And the theme of that element is vengeance, really, and as we know, as somebody said, let he who seeks vengeance be careful to dig two graves, because it's a pointless exercise. That's it. My job was to bring a dark element, the dark world. The dark elves are seeking to turn light into darkness. It's really that simple. And that classic, if you like.
And we needed that in a movie where our villain from Avengers, we wanted to play in a slightly more ambiguous way. And in order to do that, we needed somebody who could drive the entire storyline and give Thor a reason to to have something to fight against.
We're all jumping on this one. I mean, Malekith is a purist. He's a fundamentalist. He's a zealot. One of the major themes in the movie for me is something that most of our characters have to confront in one way or another. And it was a theme that was expressed very clearly by Malekith in the scene that you will find on your Blu-ray, where he's confronting Odin, and he says, "You have to ask yourself, as I once did, what are you willing to sacrifice for what you believe?" And every character goes to a turning point like that in the movie, and Malekith is the kind of guy who would sacrifice anything for principle, and we've seen him do it. And Thor learns a difficult version of that and decides to go a different way.
Okay, time for a very last question for the lady in the front row. Thank you.
I was wondering for Tom and Chris, Malekith is the main enemy in this, so Loki, although he's seen as the enemy, he's not the main antagonist. So I was wondering, deep down, do you think Loki is really evil, or is it just a jealous facade on the outside?
It's a question that I've asked myself 3 times. I think every villain is a hero in his own mind, and people make choices, and they always justify those choices, no matter how misguided their motivation. And the great privilege and thrill for me to play this character across 3 films is that he didn't start out that way, and the storyline, the narrative that was afforded to me in the very first film, this idea of a young prince who was brought up believing in his right to a throne, his inheritance of his Asgardian inheritance, that this whole story was a lie, that he was adopted and left to die on a frozen rock, and that essentially is what breaks his heart, and all of his villainy, all of his bad guy credentials come from something deeply vulnerable, and that's a gift, because it means across Thor, across Avengers, across the Dark World, that I can play a dynamic with Chris and with Anthony Hopkins and Rene Russo, which is, to what extent is he redeemable? Can he be pulled back towards the light? It's a very, very fun fault line to dance on.
Yeah, what Tom said. That's exactly it. How do you know so much about
It seems like a good note on which to end. Thanks so much for coming. Thanks for your questions, and thanks most of all to Kevin Feige, Christopher Eccleston, Natalie Gordon, Chris Hemsworth, Tom Wilson, Zach Baines, and Aaron Kelly. You can remain seated on.
Thanks for watching. If you missed part 1, you can click on the screen to watch it now. And why not subscribe to our channel for more interviews, gameplay footage, unboxings and more.